Hello students, welcome to the program. The topic that we are discussing today is stress coping strategies. The objectives set for the lecture include to understand the concept of stress coping, to understand what we mean by the stress coping strategies, to be familiar with the emotion-focused coping strategies, to be familiar with the problem-focused coping strategies, and lastly, to understand the appraisal-focused coping strategies. The stress coping first. Stress, as all of us know, if chronic, takes a toll on our bodies and can have enormously negative health implications. When we experience events in our lives that we appraise as stressful, it's essential that we use effective coping strategies to manage our stress. Coping refers to mental and behavioral efforts that we use to deal with the problems relating to stress, including its presumed cause and the unpleasant feeling and emotions it produces. Coping is the process of spending conscious effort and energy to solve personal and interpersonal problems. In the case of stress, coping mechanisms seek to master, minimize, or tolerate stress and stressor that occurs in everyday life. These mechanisms are commonly called coping skills or coping strategies. All coping strategies have the adaptive goal of reducing or dealing with stress. But some strategies can actually be maladaptive, unhealthy, or merely ineffective. Maladaptive behaviors are those that inhibit a person's ability to adjust to the particular situation. This type of behavior is often used to reduce one's anxiety, but the result is dysfunctional and non-productive. The term coping usually refers to dealing with the stress that comes after a stressor is presented. But many people also use proactive coping strategies to eliminate or avoid stressor before they occur. Personal choice in coping strategies is determined by the personality traits and type, social context, and the nature of the stressor involved. Now, let's have a look over the stress coping strategies. Stress arises when individuals perceive a discrepancy between the physical or psychological demands of a situation and the resources of his or her biological, psychological, or social systems, as has been said by Serafino in 2012. There are many ways of coping with stress. While psychologists disagree on the specific classification of the hundreds of coping strategies available today, distinctions are often made among various contrasting strategies. The effectiveness of these strategies depends on the type of stressor, the particular individual, and the circumstances. For example, if you think about the way your friends deal with stressors like exams, you will see a range of different coping responses. Some people will pace around or tell you how worried they are. Others will revise or poster their teachers for clues. Lazarus and Folkman in 1984 suggested two types of coping responses: emotion-focused and problem-focused. However, coping mechanisms can be categorized into three broad types: emotion-focused strategies, problem-focused strategies, and appraisal-focused strategies. Let's first discuss the emotion-focused coping strategies. Emotion-focused coping strategies address the feelings associated with the stressor. People modify the emotions that accompany stress perception by releasing, distracting, or managing their mental state. It's a type of stress management that attempts to reduce negative emotional responses associated with stress. Negative emotions such as embarrassment, fear, anxiety, depression, excitement, and frustration are reduced or removed by the individual by various methods of coping. Emotion-focused techniques might be the only realistic option when the source of stress is outside the person's control. Drug therapy can be seen as emotion-focused coping, as it focuses on the arousal caused by stress, not the problem. Other emotion-focused coping strategies include distraction. For example, keeping yourself busy to take your mind off the issue. Emotional disclosure. This involves expressing strong emotions by talking or writing about negative events. Praying for guidance and strength. Meditation, taking drugs, alcohol, eating more, for example, comfort food, journaling, suppressing, stopping inhibition or negative thoughts or emotions. Some of the main emotion-focused coping strategies include: meditation can help you to separate yourself from your thoughts as you react to stress. So you can stand back and choose a response rather than react out of panic or fear. Meditation also allows you to relax your body, which can reverse your stress response as well. Those who practice meditation tend to be less reactive to stress. So meditation is well worth the effort it takes to practice. Journaling allows you to manage emotions in several ways. It can provide an emotional outlet for the stressful feeling. It also can enable you to brainstorm solutions to problems you face. Journaling also helps you to cultivate more positive feelings, which can help you to feel less stressed. It also brings other benefits for wellness and stress management, making it a great emotion-focused coping strategy. Reframing. Cognitive reframing allows you to shift the way you see a problem, which can actually make the difference between whether or not you feel stressed by facing it. Reframing techniques aren't about tricking yourself out of being stressed or pretending your stressor doesn't exist. Reframing is more about seeing the solutions, benefits, and new perspectives. Cognitive distortions. Recognizing the way the mind might naturally alter what we see, what we tell ourselves about, what we are experiencing, and the way in which we may unknowingly contribute to our own problems can allow us to change these patterns. Become aware of common cognitive distortions, and you'll be able to catch yourself when you do this and will be able to recognize and understand what others may be doing it as well. Positive thinking. Being an optimist involves specific ways of perceiving problem ways that maximize your power in a situation and keep you in touch with your options. Both of these things can reduce your experience of stress and help you to feel empowered in situations that might otherwise overwhelm you. So we can say that not all problems can be solved. You can't change someone else's behavior and you can't undo a health diagnosis. But you can change how you feel about the problem. Experiment with different emotion-focused coping strategies to discover which one reduces your stress and help you feel better. When we go with the critical evaluation of emotion-focused coping strategies, a meta-analysis revealed emotion-focused strategies are often less effective than using problem-focused methods in relation to health outcomes. The research was done by Penley, Tomaka, and Webbe in 2012. In general, people who used emotion-focused strategies such as eating, drinking, and taking drugs are reported poorer health outcomes. Such strategies are ineffective as they ignore the root cause of the stress, the type of stressor, and whether the impact was on physical or psychological health explain the strategies between coping strategy and health outcomes. Emotion-focused coping doesn't provide a long-term solution and may have a negative side effect as it delays the person dealing with the problem. However, they can be a good choice if the source of stress is outside the person's control. Gender differences have also been reported showing women tend to use more emotion-focused strategies than men. Another one is the problem-focused coping strategy. Problem-focused strategies aim to deal with the cause of the problem or stressor. People try to change or eliminate the source of stress by researching the problem and learning management skills to solve it. It targets the cause of stress in practical ways, which tackles the problem or stressful situation that's causing stress, consequently directly reducing the stress. Some examples include analyze the situation, for example, pay attention, avoid taking one more responsibility than you can manage, work harder, for example, stay up all night to study for an exam, apply what you have already learned to your daily life. For example, you lose your job for the second time, you now know the steps to apply for a new job. Talk to a person that has a direct impact on the situation. For example, talk directly to your boss to ask for an extension to the project that's due in 1 week. Some problem-focused strategies that aim to remove or reduce the cause of the stressor include time management. Many times we find ourselves crunched for time with too much to do. If having too much to do in too little time is a problem for you, improve your time management skills. This is one strategy of problem-focused coping to use. In time management, your time is organized and allotted to different tasks in a realistic way that can be followed. Time management won't work if you try to cram more tasks into your day than you can physically do. Start by making a list of all the things that need to be done and their due dates. Then you can create a calendar, blocking of time for each task to organize your time and meet your deadlines. This will relieve the stress of having too much to do in too little time. Another one is avoid the problem. The best way to avoid a stressor like having too much to do is to avoid taking on too much work in the first place. Although we usually think of avoidance as a bad thing, sometimes refusing to take on a task we can't finish is beneficial. All people have a limit for how much they can accomplish. Pick the most important task and focus on doing them well. This will ensure your success and decrease your stress level. Another one is asking for support. If you feel like too much work, enlist some supports. You might be able to ask for an extension for certain projects. Or if you struggle with a particular task, ask for help from someone who is more familiar with it. If organization is interfering with your productivity, ask a highly organized friend to help you get your physical or mental space together. Delegating tasks may seem obvious, but oftentimes we feel we can do the task better, faster, or don't want to lose control. This results in us having too much work and consequently being overstressed. So take help and reduce your stress. When we critically evaluate the problem-focused coping strategies, in general, problem-focused coping is best as it removes the stressor, so deals with the root cause of the problem, providing a long-term solution. Problem-focused strategies are successful in dealing with the stressors such as discrimination, HIV infections, and diabetes. However, it's not always possible to use problem-focused strategies. For example, when someone dies, problem-focused strategy may not be very helpful for the bereaved. Dealing with the feelings of loss requires emotion-focused coping. Problem-focused approach will not work in any situation where it's beyond the individual's control to remove the source of stress. They work best when the person can control the source of the stress. For example, exams, work-based stressors, etc. It's not a productive method for all individuals. For example, not all the people are able to take control of a situation or perceived a situation as controllable. For example, optimistic people who tend to have positive expectations of the future are more likely to use problem-focused strategies, whereas pessimistic individuals are more inclined to use emotion-focused strategies. Third one is the appraisal-focused strategies. Appraisal-focused strategies attempt to modify thought processes associated with stress. People alter the way they think about a problem by approaching to it differently or altering their goals and values. Cognitive reappraisal is a form of cognitive change that involves construing a potentially emotionally eliciting situation in a way that changes its emotional impact. Lazarus and Folkman in 1984 consider it as one of the problem-focused coping strategies. This may include distancing yourself from the problem or challenge, altering goals and values, or identifying the humor in the situation to bring a positive spin. Typically, people use a mix of these three coping strategies to manage challenging circumstances. Skill or powers at employing these strategies change over time. Counselors can also promote use of these strategies by framing questions to bring a client awareness to their emotional responses to experiencing the challenge, the problem or specific challenge itself, or thoughts associated with the challenge is a great way to increase understanding. The possible questions might include: what is your experience of challenging circumstances X, Y, Z? How would you like your experience of X, Y, Z to improve? What could you do to reduce or remove this issue? How can you change your response to this issue? What runs through your mind in this situation? How else could you view this situation? What do you choose to feel or think or do instead? Using these questions, this to generating possibility and alternative directions can be useful for coaching, where a client is seeking increased clarity. There's an opportunity to bring attention to the emotions, energy, and tone, as well as the words the client uses to describe the situation, and ask questions related to emotion-focused strategies and appraisal-focused strategies. Not all coaching topics bring forth a specific challenge, but there are often opportunities to reflect back the ways in which a client chooses to directly interact with the environment that incorporate problem-solving strategies too. For example, if a client has a goal to lose weight, what food options do they routinely have available that might have an impact on their weight loss experience? Now let us see the adaptive versus maladaptive strategies. Coping strategies can also be positive, adaptive, or negative, that's maladaptive. Positive coping strategies successfully diminish the amount of stress being experienced and provide constructive feedback for the user. Examples of adaptive coping include seeking social support from others, that is social coping, and attempting to learn from the stressful experiences, meaning-focused coping. Maintaining good physical and mental health, practicing relaxation techniques, and employing humor in difficult situations are other types of positive coping strategies. Proactive coping is a specific type of adaptive strategy that attempts to anticipate a problem before it begins and prepares a person to cope with the coming challenge. The negative coping strategies might be successful at managing or abating stress, but the result is dysfunctional and non-productive. They provide a quick fix that interferes with the person's ability to break apart the association between the stressor and the symptoms of anxiety. Therefore, while these strategies provide short-term relief, they actually serve to maintain disorder. Maladaptive strategies include dissociation, sensitization, numbing out, anxious avoidance of a problem, and escape. So, dear students, we may conclude that when faced with stress, people must attempt to manage or cope with it. In general, there are two basic forms of coping: problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. Those who use problem-focused coping strategies tend to cope better with stress because these strategies address the source of stress rather than the resulting symptoms. To a large extent, perceived control greatly impacts reaction to stressors and is associated with greater physical and mental well-being. Social support has been demonstrated to be a highly effective buffer against the adverse effects of stress. Extensive research has shown that social support has a beneficial physiological effect of people, and it seems to influence immune functioning. However, the beneficial effects of social support may be related to its influence on promoting healthy behaviors. Forms of meditation, prayer, and contemplation can negate or abate present stress and provide resilience in the face of new stressors. Neuroscientists continue to study the effect of prayer and meditative states on the brain. A number of studies have demonstrated that positive effects of prayer, meditation, and contemplation on both mental and physical health. Decreasing levels of stress is one of the effects found across several studies. Through faith and spirituality, new levels of calm and happiness can be achieved, cultivating happiness, health, and wellness. Dear students, I hope you understood this content very well and enjoyed the lecture. Thanks for watching.